Today's guest is Assile Toufaily, born and raised in Nabatieh, Lebanon. Asile's passion for football ignited at age 6 when she attended her first Ansar versus Nejmeh match. From the girls' football academy in Beirut to lifting two National League titles with SAS and another with Safa SC, she carved out an impressive playing career until an ACL injury in 2021 led to her hanging up her boots. But that was just the beginning, and determined to keep shaping the sport that she loves, Assile moved to Lyon, France, where she is now pursuing a PhD in Sociology of Sport at Claude Bernard University Lyon 1. Her research dives deep into the socialization and career paths of young female footballers, shining a light on how we develop and support the next generation. Off the pitch, you'll find Assile advising clubs and federations as a women's football consultant. She has written insightful analysis for leading outlets and has lent her voice to panels around the world on gender equality in sport. She has become one of the most dynamic voices advocating for visibility and growth in the women's game. So, Asil, welcome to Beyond the Playbook. How are you doing?
First of all, thank you so much for this introduction. I I'm blushing now. So thank you so much. I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me. Actually, thank you so much for thinking of me for the France episode. That's such a hard honor.
No, no, it's our honor to have you on the episode.
The
And
pleasure is all ours.
yeah, as one of the leading voices in French women's football, you're active all over social media talking about them. You were one of the first names that came to our mind.
Thank you so much.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And yeah, you're also a big Leon fan, so I think that adds to it as well. So yeah, definitely
Yeah, I'm actually
topically speaking
based
that out.
here, so I'm immersed in the
Yeah.
football culture, especially with the Olympique Lyonnais being 15 minutes right from my home. So I'm at all the matches,
Wow.
discussing with fans. Like I got to experience this French football culture, let's say.
That's
That's pretty
that's
cool.
amazing. Yeah. So, as someone who's experienced both the Lebanese and the French cultures, how do you perceive the social impact of women's football in France compared to Lebanon?
Actually, that's such a nice question, and maybe some will be shocked when I say that I didn't actually see many differences. Because to be honest, we have some sort of similarities between the French culture and the Lebanese culture. Of course, some will say how come that's one Arab country, the other is a European country. French is from a religious point of view, they're Christian domination. In Lebanon, we have many confessions or many religions, but we have 50 almost 50% Muslims. So some will say that this is a weird approach, but now that I've been living in France for 4 years, we actually have many common points, but I actually felt that we also have many common points with most of all the other countries in the world when it comes to women's football. Like, women football is still perceived as a men's sport, unless you're living in the USA where it's a women's sport because of a whole historical background. Women's sports is still having difficulties to develop and improve. So we actually have some similarities, but when it comes to the culture behind women's football or the society, I believe that both societies aren't doing the excellent job of promoting women's football. Like we feel, if you want to compare France with England, you'll feel that France is behind because when you're playing a Coupe de France match or a final league cup final match, Wembley is filled up in England, while in France you don't even have 5K supporters. And if you want to compare it also to Lebanon, girls, if they have the approval of their parents to play football, society doesn't give a shit. Sorry for the word. And like she'll only play for fun. I played for 10 years, and even this generation right now in Lebanon knows that even though they're playing to become professional, uh, they won't reach that far. So studies is the priority. So yeah, from a social point of view, we do have many difficulties, both countries. I didn't feel that much of a difference. Maybe the biggest difference I felt is that those who make it to the academy of clubs such as PSG and Lyon, start thinking of a professional career. But when you're in the grassroots, aged 8, 7, 10, 12, girls have difficulties playing. She's usually the only girl in the club. The club is a boys' team. So yeah, this is where France and Lebanon actually meet in terms of difficulties.
Yeah, I think even like historically speaking as well, Lebanon were administered by France, right? Like historically speaking, like before they gained independence, if I'm not wrong. Like I think that also adds to the cultural similarities as well. If I'm wrong, just
It does, yeah, it does. Like uh, one of the
yeah.
points I
So
try to focus on in my PhD, because it's a comparative study between Lebanon and France. So it's
yeah,
exactly what you just asked, and we actually did have this French mandate in Lebanon, so we were kind of influenced by the French laws and French government. And even now,
okay,
like 10, 20, 30 years later, we still have the same issues. France isn't developing at all. Like, I've been here for 4 years. They hosted the World Cup in 2019. We're still struggling with the number of girls participating. Like it's increasing, but it's not increasing as much as Spain or Italy or Germany or England, for example. And Olympique Lyonnais and PSG are here in terms of professionalism, while the other clubs are way below. So how do you want to set a good data, or like a good base for all the clubs, if your league is won by OL even before the league actually starts? So yeah, it's not that it's not doing that great. Maybe the image from the outside is better, but when you live here and you actually follow, you notice that there are a lot of difficulties with French football.
yeah. I think to lead on to what you just answered, we were just about to ask you one a pertinent question, like how the French youth programs, especially those supported by the FFF initiatives, and there has been a lot of focus, I think, from FFF to increase investment in grassroots football. I think recently, maybe you'll be able to draw upon that more. But how do they address not just your athletic growth, but also your personal as well as social development, especially for young women, especially in society which has a little more of a stigma against sport, like women pursuing sport in general. So I think how would you like describe how FFF does that for the youth program?
Okay, first, if like to start on a positive note, because we kind of attacked them in the first answer, French youth system is one of the best, if not the best, youth system in my opinion. Maybe their only opponent when it comes to the quality of their youth program is Spain with their tiki-taka format and La Masia, etc. So French football with their a system based on the academies, based on what we call centre de formation. So it's a center where boys and girls aged 15 to 19 live. So they leave their families and they come and live in this academy, and they train to play football all day long. And their focus is primarily on football. They also study, they have a program, like a school program that focuses on football. So in terms of youth development, France is great in both girls and boys. That we have zero remarks on this. You also have the Pôle Espoir. Pôle Espoir is linked to the very famous Clairefontaine in France. So it's the center of excellence, let's say, for the French national team. So from an athletic point of view, uh, you've got it like you've got the A level. And every single year you'll see players like, I don't know, just now Ryan Sharkey winning the best player in the UEFA Europa League. You have Selma Basha, who was a product of the Oil Academy. Katoto was a product of the PSG Academy. So like this is where I can argue with people for hours on this. French youth system is great. Maybe they have a few like years of like gap years where they don't produce talent, but their system is amazing. What I like about your question is the other part, because okay, the athletic part is important, but what about the self development of the player? What about her social development? And like this is actually interesting because I spent a few months here with an academy, and I got to notice that okay, they focus immensely on their career, like football career, but they also care about their social development. Like you'll see that girls, um they spend time with boys, they spend time with girls. They have to continue their studies. They go participate in workshops. Like I know that yearly they organize once or twice a year a workshop about gender equality and LGBT rights. So kids age 15, 16 are actually learning about this, learning how to act against homophobia, for example, or act against racism. So these programs are actually included. So instead of only having, I don't know, math, science, history, etc., the French Football Federation, with the help of the clubs, has another program which focuses on this social development of the players, focusing about, I don't know, like this is one of the courses I attended, which was focused on racism and all sorts of discrimination. And there's also once I participated, was more of a players development on how they speak to media. Like when they're in a press conference and they're 18, 19, they learn how to answer journalists questions when they can become professional. And this was such an interesting webinar, because, or like seminar, because like the journalist would ask a very simple question, and you'd say that okay, no matter how I answer, it would be an okay answer. But they actually teach you what to say, when to say it, which words to use to avoid any criticism, any like falling into this trap or whatever. So yeah, there's this focus on what happens outside of the field, outside of the athletic performance.
Yeah, that's actually pretty interesting knowing that the uh, academy players actually get educated on other aspects, the social aspects outside of football, almost social aspects that everybody in society faces at some level or the other. And I think that's a great step. I think a lot more academies, a lot more federations should take this up and should educate the youth players, because that's where it starts from, right? Because that's where the learning all starts. As they go out into the world, they're able to face the world with what they're equipped with all the training that they've been given off the field. So I think that's actually a great step. I was quite intrigued to learn that that they're all educated about the social issues as well and how to deal with them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they actually are. And like okay, at the end of the day you'd say that it's not that important because they have a family to go back to, or maybe if they learn something at home they wouldn't care less about what this instructor will say. But if you think about it, they know that they're actually like they're actually on the road to becoming professional. So if they want to make it, if they want to impress the coach, if they want to impress the staff, etc., etc., they have to abide by these rules. So even if consciously this player doesn't want to adopt these norms, he kind of actually has to. So with the time, you actually learn it, and you accept it. I'm not gonna say accept it, but like you learn to live with it. Like racism, like maybe he was, maybe let's say a player she was raised in a environment where racism was dominant, or her parents were, I don't know, extreme right, let's say. Having her in the academy and having to face, or like to be close to friends and teammates of different cultures and different backgrounds and different ethnicities will actually force her in a way or another to open up, to become more open-minded, to accept these differences, or else she can't succeed because she's playing a team sport. Like she's not playing tennis. She has to accept those around her. So yeah, that's what's interesting in the French system. It's that like they live there. So like the academy becomes more or less more important than their family. See?
yeah, I think like even France in general is like a melting pot of multiple cultures, right? From people from different parts of the world, like from Africa, from North Africa, Central Africa, from Middle East, like how all this, you can see that with the composition of the French sides as well. And I think the role of the Clairefontaine, which you mentioned as well, plays an important role in the integration as well. I think, like I think even Sai's next question will be something to do with that as well. I think.
Yeah, so actually, I like how you touched on that because I think the French Football Federation is also committed to inclusion, right? So, how do you think and given France's diverse background, multicultural background, how do you think the Women's Euros can be used to strengthen the ties with these diaspora communities, like from the Middle East or North Africa? And what roles can multicultural athletes play in these efforts?
It's such a nice question. I think it could actually be more of a question to be asked. Like now, I think I'm gonna predict, but we might actually have the answer right after the tournament. Because one problem, like I've noticed in France, is that again I'm comparing to England because the Euros were just here 4 years ago, but I'm also gonna compare with Australia, who hosted the World Cup, or like New Zealand and Australia. And Australia is also a country where you have many communities of ethnic backgrounds. We have a lot of Lebanese there. We have the original people, etc., etc. But you feel like the way these mega sporting events influence other countries, is much like much more influential or bigger than how France is impacted by them. Because I try to explain, like I watched the Euros while being in France. I watched the World Cup while being in France. Like the only way I was actually feeling the tournament is when I was watching at home. When I go outside and walk on the street, like like most of the people weren't even aware that the French national team was playing. To be honest, unless you're a football fan or a women's football fan, uh, it went unnoticed. Like, okay, they're playing the World Cup. Wow, they won the first game. Okay, good luck with the second. But you don't feel
Mm.
this energy you might find with the men's World Cup, or with the Olympics, etc. So that's why I feel like measuring this impact of the Euros with the French context is different.
Mm.
It must, maybe if they win the tournament, it could lead to something big, like when it happened with Zidane in 1998. Because
Mm.
when Zidane and his team won it in 1998, we had this whole campaign of black blanc beurre, which represented the black, the white, and the métis, let's say. And it led to this social cohesion, let's say, or social coming together in the country. But for the women's football, I feel like women's sports are uh, are very far from having this direct impact on society, especially when it comes to such social questions in a time where we have political tensions. So I really doubt it.
Yeah, like I think that point which you made, right, about the 1998 World Cup, especially the fact that France were the hosts of that World Cup as well, and the fact that they won the home World Cup, which is a very difficult feat for any country to do. I think that point which you mentioned was very pertinent. So, like in a way, do you think that the 2019 World Cup, which was hosted by France, by the way, was that like a missed opportunity for France? Like they were one of the favorites for the tournament. Like, do you think would that winning that tournament would that have uh, enabled a lot of change in societal behavior towards women's football? And like as an add-on to that, like would it have improved FFF's gender parity policies, like how they allocate resources and all that?
Of course, of course. First, if I don't know if you already like ever had the chance to talk to a French person who works in women's football, the moment you ask about this question, like the first like direct answer they have on their mind, yeah, COVID made it impossible for us to have a post World Cup heritage. This is the first answer they say. Like whenever you say that you hosted the World Cup, like you've done nothing after it. Why? I say, yeah, COVID. But the World Cup ended in July. COVID was in March. So like July till March, like I wasn't here, but I read about it, and friends told me from July till August till March, when the pandemic started, they sensed zero changes. Like, you had the opportunity to win the World Cup, you didn't. I understand that it might be hard to build on something after it. If they had won the World Cup, I think it would have led to something, because if you look at the starting 11 of the French national team, you'll see the diversity. Like, if you compare the French national team's starting 11 to Spain's or to England, you'll feel like you have Wendy Renard coming from an island. You'll have Selma Basha, Amal Majri, Sakina Karshawi, who are Arabs. You have Kaditetu Diani, who's from Central Africa. So you have this diversity. You have the legend of women's football in France, Eugénie Le Sommer, who's French, like coming from French background. So maybe if they had won it, we might have seen them more on TV. We might have seen their impact. Maybe they would have dared to ask for better conditions, because one of the I'm a very big fan of Wendy Renard. I love her, but one thing that Wendy believes in, and I don't agree with her, is that in her opinion, the French women's national team can demand better training conditions or playing conditions, because they are yet to win a international trophy. So the reason why Spain or the US demand, because the US are the best in the world, and like she believes that Megan Rapinoe is more, I'm not gonna say eligible, but like she's got more she's kind of like she's got the right to. While in France, the national team still didn't do anything, so maybe they don't feel entitled to ask for better conditions. I don't believe in this, because I believe like you have to have better conditions to give back. So maybe if they had won the World Cup in 2019, the players themselves would have dared to ask for improvements. They would have dared to have salaries for everyone, because now the top or the elite players are well paid, but the others aren't even getting paid the minimum wage. So yeah, Ashish, I believe winning the World Cup would have maybe led or directed the dynamic towards a more positive income.
That's actually quite interesting that they weren't able to capitalize, but then there were other discussions and belief systems within the group itself as to how much they deserve. I think that's again the mentality that society has put on women, that they have to be able to achieve something in order to ask for resources, right? So I think Wendy Renard has also fallen victim to that sort of thinking, and
Exactly.
yeah. Uh, Moving on to the club aspect, as we all know, Lyon recently rebranded to OL Lyonnes, including the new Lionesses crest, and they've moved to the Groupama Stadium for all their home matches, and they've created a. There's also talks of creation of a dedicated performance center for the women, and this has come as a statement of identity and ambition for women's football in France. So, how do you how what was your initial thought on this?
It's been on my mind for the past week, because it was announced on Monday, and like, yeah, it's been 4 3 4 days, and I can't get my mind, like I can't choose, because to be honest, I'm not talking about the performance center or playing at the Groupama. This is more than great. It shows that Michelle Kang has ambition for women's football in France, because at some point people were like, okay, she's investing in France, the US, and England. Her priority is definitely the US and England to become third. So this showed that no, she actually knows the value of OL, and she wants to invest here. Like, she wants to put OL back on top, because Barcelona in recent years have dominated. But when it comes to the logo and the name, this is where I'm having an issue. because like before working in women's football, or before being a journalist or content creator or whatever, I was actually an OL men's team fan. Like back when I was in Lebanon in 2006 7, I'm a Real Madrid fan. And once Real Madrid faced OL beat us, and it was Juninho. So I started following OL because of Juninho, and I learned about Benzema. That's how Benzema became my favorite player. So like I've been watching OL since then, and I believe it's also the case in India. Like, women's football wasn't on TV, so I used to read about it on in my local newspaper that OL women's team won this tournament. OL did this. OL did that. So I actually kind of got also addicted to the women's team because of the fact that I was playing football in Lebanon. I loved OL men's team, and I was actually impressed by the fact that they had a women's team. And whenever I used to, and I'm being honest, whenever I was a kid, I was 12. Whenever I used to see Amal Majri's name and Luisa Nasir, I was like, wow, they're also Arabs. So if they made it, I can make it one day. Like, because I didn't know that they were born in France or like raised in France. I just linked to okay, like women's football for Arabs can exist. So I grew up loving this club and loving this crest. Like, and I loved the crest. I adored the crest, and I like the logo, and I loved the name OL Femina. But like, but I, but I feel like the branding, like rebranding, is needed because I've been in France for 4 years now, and women's football is going nowhere. Like, if OL stops investing, I can assure you that women's football in France is dead. So if this is a way for Michelle Kang to invest, if she believes she needs to move, so like separate the women's team from the men's team, I'm 100% behind her, supporting her. I'll be following the step very closely, but I think it's gonna take me some time. It will also take the OL fans some time to get used to it, because it's such a change. Because now, if I'm gonna go watch the men's team, I can't wear the women's team jersey because it doesn't have the same logo, even though like they're still the same club, but two different entities. So it's a bit confusing, but I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful, and the performance center gives me this push I need to actually see that it's not just the Americanization of the club. It's actually something very serious and something for the good of women's football in the country. So let's see.
Yeah, I think that move, it kind of shows, how different American sports is from, European model of sports as well, right? Like if you can see, like the way she's very aggressive in the way she's, rebranded the entire club, not without giving much thought to the history, because a lot of people have that bond into a particular crest or a particular colors as well, right? Like for me, I'm a Chelsea fan personally, so like I mean, if the new ownership were to change the crest of Chelsea, I would feel very badly about it. So I can understand what you feel, like from it being like a culture shock of sorts, and how I love the fact that you were able to, uh, from being in Lebanon, how you were able to connect with Lyon, which is like basically a continent away, and how that crest and how that Arab identity, you were able to connect with the Arab identity as well. With and Juninho being a person from another continent playing for Lyon, and like his beautiful free kicks also being another factor. It is like a beautiful story actually out to about how fandom of people from around the world develops as a result. It's actually beautiful as a result, and
Yeah, yeah,
see
but
that through newspapers, especially that time.
don't forget that like, let's be honest, we all started watching women's football somehow because of men's football, because men's football was like on every TV in the Middle East, like even before we had Al Jazeera. So it wasn't beIN Sports, it wasn't as expensive as it is now. So almost every single household used to have access. And I loved the club. And my cousin used to live in France, and he was a Marseille fan. So I wanted to also piss him off. So I chose OL, their rivals. So yeah, it started out like in as a funny story, but I actually like, became very close to the club. I know about all their history, and like, this is something very important. Like I like to talk about this all the time. Is that people have to understand that being a journalist doesn't mean you have to be objective, because we all like we were kids at some point. We were growing up to become the adults we are today. So we were all impacted by a club or whatever. Because if now you like if you tell me right now that I don't know, Real Madrid will win the women's Champions League, and try to be objective, I'm gonna tell you like you can't expect someone who has been following Real Madrid since he was 5 years old to be objective. Like they will eventually be emotional in a way. So as long as you don't trespass and you stay respectful, and you continue like showing like or proving what you want to prove, or like sharing the story in a professional way, I believe it's normal to kind of have a weak point for a club. And this is something like I'm always reproached by people like, how can you call yourself a journalist if you love OL? Well, I'm 28. I started watching OL when I was 10. So 18 years of my life have been revolving around the club and trying to see how the club improves its women's section. I can't like stop just being a fan one day. So I believe everything every like now I don't know Thierry Henry, who's a pundit on CBC. If you tell him that he's with Barcelona or Arsenal, they're both his clubs, so he's gonna choose. But if you tell him Barcelona or a club in Mexico, he won't choose the club in Mexico. He chooses his club because he played for Barcelona. So it's totally normal for me.
Yeah, so I think let's move on to the last question of our discussion. So, like, I think FIFA recently announced the expansion of the Women's World Cup to 48 teams from 2031. So, I think, I mean, France always qualifies to the World Cup. So, I think, like, what do you think of this move from a more broader perspective? Like, what do you think of it?
I'm torn between approving it or not, because like in that's my opinion. But in men's football, I believe that the window for this globalization of the game is through the Champions League and the clubs. Like maybe Barcelona is more famous than the Spain national team. In women's football, because the growth is more recent, I feel like the World Cup is the biggest window of all, and the national teams such as the US or England in England, or Spain with the recent win and what happened with Rubiales and Jennifer Hermoso, the national team has an impact. Like people in France care about France playing at the Euros or at the World Cup more than when Olympique Lyonnais won the Champions League, because like the national team actually assembles all these people together. So that's why I like the idea of having 48 nations at the World Cup, is because this could allow players from I hate the word third world countries, but I'm just saying that less developed countries to actually have an opportunity to appear. Because in Lebanon, I know that we have 5, 6 excellent girls. The only issue or the only problem for them not being able to play abroad is because we don't have agents focusing on women's football. We don't have the matches aren't all on TV. So maybe if Lebanon manages to qualify to the World Cup, these players, like their matches will be live and they will be watched by millions and millions of people. So maybe a player just needs one good assist or one good play, and a scout will get in touch with her. She might get a contract, I don't know, in Sweden, like not even in France, it's Sweden, and she'll become professional. So this visibility you get from having 48 teams is very important for these clubs who need, for these nations who need more spotlight. It also means that if you participate, you'll get financially, you'll get some money because of it. So this will be nice also to develop locally. So it has a lot of positive outcomes. That's why I'm hopeful. At the same time, like I feel like FIFA is running at a speed where like the other nations aren't able to keep up, because even if at the moment we qualify to the World Cup, like Lebanon qualifies, I'm 100% sure that even if we get in the same group as, I don't know, Colombia, it'll end in a 5, 6, 7, 8 nil to Colombia, because no matter how much we develop, like you have the top 20 nations in the world who are like years and years ahead. Like we've seen it in 2019 when Thailand lost 13-0 against the US. And it doesn't give this nice image about women's football. It shows that, yeah, women's football is still in a bad shape. Like you only have 5, 6 good clubs, see, like nations. So I'm torn between the positive and the negative. The positives are too good to be true. But at the same time, the negatives might impact the game really like negatively. Like I don't want to see big scores. I don't want to see. I'm not gonna say humiliations, but yeah, I don't want to see one-sided matches, because that's in 5, 6 years, 10 years. So Spain will be even better than they are now. And then if you got a country who's, I don't know, like I'm gonna take the example of Lebanon to avoid attacking any other country. But if you take Lebanon, you're only 400 girls in all of Lebanon playing football. That's nothing. That's a city in like a village in France. So if you want to gather the best 11 players in France and the best 11 players in Lebanon, the gap is too big. The money is too big to invest. The media is too different. So I think only time will tell, but it's too much. Like 48 countries. Like at in the men's World Cup, it just happened. Like like we forgot about this 50 years gap between women's football and men's football because of the ban, and you just want to come here now and reduce all this gap by having 48 nations World Cup. I think it's too much.
Yeah, I think obviously we all know what the actual reasons are behind the shift to 48 countries and all, but I think move, making the Women's World Cup also follow in the same steps is definitely going to hit harder than it will hit the men's tournament. And I don't think the repercussions are thought about as much, or they have thought about it, but to them it's still not as important as the men's World Cup is, or those financial gains that they will get out of expanding. I don't think the pitfalls of increasing has hit them as yet because of the actual goal that they're trying to pursue, in my opinion. And yeah, I agree with what you said. I think it's too soon, it's too immature. The women's game is a little too immature for it to be expanding to 48 um, teams at this
Mm.
moment.
Even apparently the Olympics will now be expanding. Like why? Like I've seen it somewhere. It's a rumor, but why are you trying to like accelerate all this progress while, I don't know, like while in Nigeria or in Egypt, even like women's football isn't developed, like isn't professional yet. You don't have a real product like to compare to Germany, where you have, I don't know many millions playing football in Germany. Like you don't have the same base everywhere. Like if you want to compare it to men's football, Jordan, if you take the example of Jordan, I have many good Jordanian friends. In Jordan, men's football is developed. Now they have players playing professionally abroad, but women's football is also developed. Like women's football in Jordan it's kind of professional. They have a professional league, they get paid. But I'm sure that if you put the women's team now to play a European national team, they can't compete. Like they can't keep up with. And and at the end of the day, they just say like, okay, see, we told you like Europe is better than Asia. But yeah, of course, like because like you started the development years ahead. So I feel like the decision was taken from a purely economic perspective, without caring about the, as you said, the consequences, and especially the social consequences of having such number of teams. But yeah, it might be positive because more national nations will participate. So maybe for example, maybe Lebanon, the country will, like, the government will put money in the game, maybe, but it's too soon to tell. And I believe, like, we could have made a sub tournament, like, I don't know, World Cup, second World Cup, where teams from the same level compete. Like, I prefer to see Lebanon playing against, I don't know, not even Japan. Japan are top tier. Like, but in Europe, I prefer to see Lebanon playing against Latvia or playing against Spain. Of course, I chose Latvia because Latvia might be able to compete with them. But Spain now, Spain's national team can actually beat Lebanon's men team. Like, let's be honest, that's how good Spain's national team is. So I think we have, like, let's wait and see. But I feel like it was a bit too early to have it, this 48 nations World Cup.
Yeah, even like my personal opinion also is like fairly along the same lines. Like because even like I was against it in the men's World Cup itself because it is a cash grab in the first place. And when you talk about the World Cup, it is the best event in the world, and you want to make it the best of the best teams taking part in it, and that makes those upsets, like the upsets which happen in a 32 team World Cup, they amplify even more. You feel that that impact comes out more, as a result. I feel like compared to like 48 teams, that means almost 25% of the world is taking part in the World Cup, and like if you it should be exclusive, right? I mean, I'm all for expanding the World Cup in like in both men's and women's side of it, but like if you're trying to devalue it just to increase the number of games, and let's be honest, it's a cash grab from FIFA and Jenny Infantino. Like okay, I have a lot of stuff to say about that bald man, but yeah, I don't want to say more and censor us even further. But yeah, let's end this podcast on a fun note. So we want to know, what are your predictions for France in this women's Euros? How do you think they will, do in this tournament?
You know that France is in the group of death. So with
Yes.
Wales, the Netherlands, and England, like, it couldn't get worse than this. The two previous winners, England in 2022 and Netherlands
Yeah,
in 2000, I forgot, that was something. And I don't know
2017, if I'm not wrong.
I don't know if you followed yesterday, but the head coach of the French national team didn't call up Wendy Renard, Eugénie Le Sommer, and Kanzadali. So I know him. Like, I know him. I don't wanna, like, discuss or talk about this. But why on earth would you start this renovation of the national team right before a big tournament? Like, let them play this tournament, let them have this retirement party they want to have, and then start rebuilding for the World Cup. They like let's be realistic. Each player focuses on one objective throughout the season of the national team. In 2022, it was the World Cup. This year, it's 2023. This year, it's the Euros. So Wendy Renard, whenever she was going to play with France, she knew that, okay, I still have 9 more games before the Euros. I still have 6 more games. And then out
Mm.
of a sudden, now 2 months ahead of the tournament, you just don't call her up because you want to make some changes. Like, because maybe I understand more for Eugenie, because Eugenie wasn't playing with Lyon as she was before, and he kind of helped her achieve the record of 2,000 matches. But like, Wendy Renard is your best center back. Like, let's be honest. Like, Kenza Dali has been great with the Wave and the women's the NWSL. So this, like, I'm not positive. Like, I'm just gonna wait and see for these two upcoming matches and the two other in June against Brazil. Brazil is coming to play. I wanted to see Marta playing against Wendy Renard. Like, I was waiting for this. It's a 1 hour ride. I was going to watch it, and just when I saw this, I'm like, why? Like why now? Like, this was my reaction. I was like, why did you decide to make the change now? Like, let them play this tournament. Like, if you feel like you're gonna lose anyway, like, you can't win it, you're gonna sacrifice this tournament. Sacrifice it, but while respecting your legends. Like, even if they won nothing with France, they're still legends of women's football in France. So I'm not hopeful. just gonna wait and see. I know that offensively the team has a lot of weapons. Delphine Cascarino, Marie-Antoinette Katoto, Gianni, a lot of uh, offensive weapons. But the issue in the last 2 3 years is that we can't produce play. Like it's very boring in terms of performances. So let's wait and see. But I feel like it's gonna be. I don't want to seem harsh, but an elimination from the first round unless they qualify at the best as best third. But I really feel it's gonna be a complicated tournament for the French. I don't know.
I think like let's I wouldn't say put you out of your misery talking about France, but like I would say like I think let's hope that France do well in the tournament, like the best that they can do based on the squad, which like you can see with the emotion with which you were able to talk about the exclusions as well. Like you're really passionate about this team as well. So yeah, I want to take this opportunity to thank you so much for joining us on this wide-ranging conversation where we talked about a lot of different topics, a lot of interesting topics, a lot of about sociology, about the social stigma in a way, and how it affects women's football in general. And it was like such a fascinating conversation. I learned a lot. I'm sure even Sai also learned a lot from this conversation with you. So thank you so much for joining us. And yeah, like let's hope that France does well. I think for your sake as well, because like I know that you will burst a pop a blood vessel if France don't do well as well. Like from the way you talk about this, yeah.
Okay. First three, I thank you so much for the invitation. I'm a women's football like addict. I love women's football, so whenever I can talk about it, like give my opinion, and sometimes I get a lot of backlash because maybe my opinion doesn't isn't the same as other people's opinion, but that's okay because at the end of the day everyone has its own way of thinking or opinion. But I like to talk about women's football, so thank you for the invitation. And really, let's hope for something because I swear, after this past week as a French football fan, it's too much. The playoffs that meant nothing. OL being disqualified from the Champions League by Arsenal, eliminated by Arsenal. The
Sai is an
the
Arsenal fan, by the way, so you
right,
can direct
the
her. Yeah.
name change of the OL Lyon, and now Wendy Renard not going to the Olympic to the squad with Eugenie and Kansas. It's too much to take. And yeah, being eliminated from Arsenal is shocking because like Arsenal right after they decided they don't want to play football anymore. خلاص, they won against OL, their season is over. Like they lost 2 matches in a row. But yeah. And I feel like if you play this match 1,000 times again, OL will win. They were so bad in this game. Really so bad. And Arsenal was great tactically. But OL were really so bad. I've never seen them this bad, except for the other loss by Arsenal 2 years ago. So Arsenal becoming to are now a difficulty for OL.
Yeah, I think personally as an Arsenal fan, I never expected that scoreline. I know we had done the 5-1 2 years ago, but um, I, I don't think any Arsenal fan expected this. We may have taken a very close loss,
Yeah,
but this kind of a thrashing, no one expected Leon to get.
humiliate. Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, guys, please like and subscribe this video, and yeah, there are a lot more videos in the series coming out. So yeah.